welcome back to yet another episode of the Checkers or Wreckers podcast, ladies and gentlemen. As always, I am your host, Carl Leonard, and I am back. And I am filled with more news about this sport that we like to call the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing, NASCAR. That was a funny little intro right there, but in all seriousness, though, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with yet another episode. This is episode 36 of Season 1, as we are coming down to the last episode of the first ever season of the show, which will be the week after championship weekend is all set and done. But for right now, we are focusing on Martinsville this week. But before we get into this upcoming weekend, we have to recap last weekend, and there has been a lot of news with this past weekend and this week in general. We'll go over the weekend recap as we normally do to start out every single episode, and we'll also bring up the question on if Christopher Bell, driver of the number 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, is the most clutch driver of NASCAR as of right now. We'll also talk about the bad playoff mojo that struck his two teammates, Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin, and we'll also discuss on what they have to do in order to get into the Championship 4 at Martinsville this upcoming weekend. NASCAR competed against F1 in ratings this week. Yes, we always hear the debate on who's the better motorsport in America between NASCAR and Formula One. For years, it was NASCAR, but as of F1's rising popularity with their Netflix series Drive to Survive, that changed. But we're going to look at ratings this week between the Miami race and their Grand Prix in Austin, Texas, and compare, well, how did they do against each other? This week marked the one-year anniversary of the infamous Hail Melon move from Ross Chastain at Martinsville, which got him into the Championship 4. We'll discuss on where I was at when that whole ordeal went down. And I also want to hear from you guys in the comment section on where were you at when all that stuff took place. RCR announces its new driver for their Xfinity Series lineup next year in the 2 car, and it was a pretty shocking move and a very interesting one indeed. So Austin Hill will have a very young teammate by his side next year, but we'll get into that later. And we'll also look in the playoff standings as they stand as of right now on who will make the Championship 4 and who won't. But let's get into the first topic of today's show, ladies and gentlemen. As always, it is the weekend recap. This past weekend, the 3 National Touring Series of NASCAR made their trip to the Homestead Miami Speedway for their playoff races. On Saturday, we had both the Truck and Xfinity Series races, as well as the Cup race on Sunday. So let's get into the Truck race, ladies and gentlemen. For the Truck Series at Miami, it was a pretty standard Truck Series race at Miami. Yes, I used that phrase twice in one sentence. Not really a whole lot went on, but Carson Hocevar was the man of the hour as he picked up his 4th win of the season and also advances into the Championship 4, as this was the final race for the Truck Series to decide who was going to make the Championship 4 for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. And Carson Hocevar, despite not needing a win to get in, he decided to dominate the last portion of the race anyway. Corey Heim was up there for a good amount of the race. He actually swept the stages but fell back. He still managed to get a top 5, but for Heim it didn't matter. He already locked up his spot way earlier than Hocevar and all the other drivers did. So, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Championship 4 for 2023 looks like this. Corey Heim, Carson Hocevar, the 2021 Truck Series champion himself, Ben Rhodes, and trying to get JMS Racing's last Truck Series championship in their last season as an organization, Grant Enfinger. So that is the championship floor lineup for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series this year. Missing out on the big show is the 19 of Christian Eckes with his first season with McAnally Racing. Nick Sanchez in his rookie year needed to get some spots at the end of the race, was not able to do so. Matt Crafton wasn't much of a factor all day long. And Zane Smith probably had the worst way to end his playoff hopes. Not only was he not doing much throughout the whole entire race, but it was announced afterwards during truck race inspection that he was disqualified after a windshield infraction. Basically, the windshield was dented to give more air to the rear of the truck and basically make the truck faster. So basically, if you know what FlexGate is from the 2018 season with Kevin Harvick, that's basically what this was. And it was pretty obvious to see it. I mean, if you were a fan watching the truck race at home like myself, you could easily see that the windshield was a little bit dented on the 38 truck, and you just said to yourself, I don't think that's going to pass post-race inspection, and like we predicted, it did not. So that's a shame for Zane Smith. He is not able to defend his Truck Series championship this year, but it was still a very solid season for him, but he will be leaving on a very, very sour note. But despite all that, the main focus was on Carson Hocevar, as what a year that he has had. As soon as he got that first win back in Texas, the floodgates just opened up for him, and now he is going to go fight for a Truck Series championship this year among Corey Heim, Ben Rhodes, and Grant Enfinger, who are the rest of the championship force. So congratulations to Carson Hocevar and the entire number 42 team for Nice Motorsports. From one driver that had the floodgates open up for them after they got their first win, to another driver who had the floodgates open up for them after their first win. As during the Xfinity race, it was Sam Mayer and Riley Herbst battling it out for the win at Homestead, Miami. Riley Herbst, he was not in the playoffs to begin with, and even after the previous week, him getting his first ever career win at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Riley Herbst was in contention late in the going to win the race at Homestead Miami Speedway, but it was playoff driver Sam Mayer picking up his fourth win of the year and locking himself into the championship four. So, Sam Mayer, another driver just like Carson Hocevar, who struggled to win in their own respective series, but once they got their first win, the floodgates just opened up for them, and Mayer got 3 more wins after his first career win at Road America. He picked up a win at Watkins Glen, picked up a win at Charlotte Roval, and now he gets his first ever oval win in the Xfinity Series at Homestead Miami Speedway. So I'm going to pull the AJ Allmendinger for a second. Oh my God, he won on an oval. You like that? I know that was a bit cringy, but my show and I'll do what I want. So, but back to Mayer real quick. Sam Mayer has had a really, really solid playoff run, and, you know, there's not a whole lot else to be said. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory at this point with how Sam Mayer's been doing. But Sam Mayer will fight for a championship at Phoenix in next week, actually. I keep forgetting that we only have 2 races left for the season. So that's wild to think about. But congratulations to Sam Mayer and the entire number 1 team at Junior Motorsports. Very solid Xfinity Series race, I might add. Then we get into Sunday's race, ladies and gentlemen. And if you are a betting man, somewhat like myself, I bet when I'm feeling really, really confident about picks, but we'll get into that later. Sunday's race had a lot happen, and it was a race I would like to forget. Not saying the fact that the race was bad, but I would like to forget it for other reasons, but we'll get to that later on. But the race was won by the 20 team of Christopher Bell, as he came up clutch, as Christopher Bell has been known for doing for over a year or so. He picks up his second win of the season, and he will fight for a championship along with Kyle Larson in the championship 4 at Phoenix. This was a very interesting race for Christopher Bell because during this race, actually, let's go back to Las Vegas for a second. We all remember how Las Vegas went down between him and Kyle Larson. Bell was closing in late in the race, but it was too little too late. And Bell kind of beat himself up over post-race interviews saying that it was probably his best shot to get into the championship four. And, I hated to see that Christopher Bell was very, very hard on himself because, I've always lived by the famous quote, "It ain't over until it's over." And, Christopher Bell thought, the opposite of that. And I was just like, well, let's just see how the next 2 weeks play out because he could perform really solid at Homestead and he could win at Martinsville like he did last year. During the Miami race, Christopher Bell was majority of the race, not even inside the top 10. The lowest I remember seeing Christopher Bell in was 19th. And at that point, Bell was just ready to throw in the towel and just say, I'm giving up this, and that. But his crew quickly calmed him down, saying, it's not over till it's over. Just keep pushing to the end, and the results will come. And then Christopher Bell was just like, okay, I'm not going to give up. And then it all worked out for Christopher Bell. He made a very amazing 3-wide move against, I believe it was Denny Hamlin and Ryan Blaney fighting for the lead, which we'll talk about them in a second. And that's pretty much what got Christopher Bell the win. He was able to hold off, I believe, the last 30 or so laps to pick up the win at Homestead Miami Speedway and lock himself into the championship four. I said last year, even before the show existed, I said to a lot of people after the 2022 season that this would not be the last time that you would see Christopher Bell in the championship four. I have studied Christopher Bell a lot, from, his Truck Series days, his Xfinity Series days, and I'm just like, this guy is going to be, at the time I was just like, this guy is going to be, a star in the future, and, he's done just that. I mean, this will be his second championship four appearance in a row. Out of his 3 seasons with Joe Gibbs Racing and, 2 out of his first 4 Cup Series seasons. So Christopher Bell, there's a good chance that he will be a champion by the, end of this decade or during this decade. So, I mean, it's very impressive to see, what he's done in his career. And, Christopher Bell, he was so hard on himself the previous week at Las Vegas that, we all thought, no, that might be it for him. That might be it for him. But I do want to bring up how clutch Christopher Bell is for a second. And this is one of the topics I wanted to talk about. And we have seen over the year or so, that Christopher Bell has had those moments in the playoffs. This is like the 3rd time that he's had this moment where, like, he's probably down and out for the count. But, he'll come up at the very last second and just seize the moment, seal the deal, so to speak. I mean, the first example last year was at the Charlotte Roval, where he was in a must-win situation which was a round of 12 elimination race, and he had to win to get into the next round, and he did just that. The very next round, he got caught up in an incident that wasn't even his fault at the beginning of the round of 8 last year. He's in a must-win situation. He goes and wins off the cutoff race at Martinsville to lock himself into the championship four. And now this year, he's in a must-win situation somewhat, basically. He thinks that he's down and out for the count, but no, the very next week he gets it done at Homestead Miami Speedway. So this has been, I would say Christopher Bell is one for redemption, so to speak. Like, when he's down, he always finds a way to pull through in winning fashion so far. So that's like 3 times that he has done it. So I think Christopher Bell, if he hasn't already earned the title of one of the most clutch drivers in NASCAR as of right now, he's definitely one of those. He's definitely near that category. So, but I was very happy for Christopher Bell to win it. Ryan Blaney came up short. Tyler Reddick finished 3rd. I believe William Byron finished up inside the top 5. And it was a struggle for some playoff drivers in the field as well. But before we get into the struggles that some drivers had, I do want to say congratulations to Christopher Bell and the number 20 team for Joe Gibbs Racing. And they will, alongside the 5 team of Kyle Larson, half of the spots of the championship four are already filled up. So this blew my championship four wide open because I had Byron, Larson, Hamlin, and Truex making the championship four. Larson, I got right. Bell, I did not see making the championship 4. I actually had him out at the round of 12 because it was kind of a quiet year for Christopher Bell. He did have a win earlier in the year, but it wasn't. He was solid. He was performing well, but it just wasn't, we were all focused on William Byron, Martin Truex, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson. We were focused on the top guys. And Christopher Bell, he was just quietly consistent, and, now he's here. So, my original championship 4, one of those drivers is not making it. So, this blew my championship 4, and I'm sure it blew a lot of other championship 4 picks for multiple people wide open. So, once again, congratulations to Christopher Bell. Now we need to get into the playoff struggles, ladies and gentlemen. This was a race where we had a lot happen. So, in the late stages of the race, Denny Hamlin and Ryan Blaney were constantly battling it out during one of the last few restarts, which was actually what gave Bell the win. While Bell was just taking off, just leading laps and not looking behind him, Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin were going at it for second. I mean, they were racing as hard as you can at Homestead Miami Speedway. And while it looked like Denny Hamlin was going to, clear Ryan Blaney, he had the position. All of a sudden, Denny Hamlin veers slightly to the left and into the outside wall. Complete unthinkable madness ensued for the 11 team. Denny Hamlin having a really, really solid run. And in this round, this is the most crucial round of the playoffs because this is what decides the championship 4, in Phoenix. You can't make any mistakes, especially if you're a driver who has a lot of wins, who has a lot of points. Anything could happen. And for Denny Hamlin, who has been one of the top drivers this year, he unfortunately had something happen, and it was in the worst way possible. I looked at the replay. Apparently, something broke on the car. I'm not sure what it was exactly. I would have to go and look back to see what it was, but, that's something you do not want to see if you're a fan of the 11 team. That's just, that was hard to watch, but I know a lot of Denny Hamlin fans, or Denny Hamlin haters, I should say, were pretty happy to see that. And even after the wreck happened, Ryan Blaney literally said on the radio, I'm not going to say what he said exactly because, I'm trying to keep this a PG show. So, I'm trying to limit the cussing as much as I can. But he said, F you, this, and that. Obviously, Hamlin couldn't hear him. But, the signal, the frustration was there for Ryan Blaney. He didn't. Blaney did come out in the post-race interview saying that he didn't mean some of the things that he said on the radio, but playoff racing, it gets very, very frustrating sometimes for some drivers, and I was watching the battle in of itself, and I was just like, oh my goodness, that's just wow. So just. That was very interesting to see, and sucks for Denny Hamlin, but Ryan Blaney was definitely the beneficiary from that incident, as he would go on to have a good finish, and Denny Hamlin will be below the cut line, as well as his teammate Martin Truex Jr., who not even a minute later, the same caution that Denny Hamlin was involved in, Martin Truex Jr. blew a motor. I mean, a complete Joe Gibbs Racing disaster class. Luckily, it wasn't in the end, as one of their cars would end up going the victory lane, but two of the best playoff contenders, two of the best drivers all season, I can't say the same for Martin Truex Jr. because, his regular season was great. He was the regular season champion, but unfortunately, his playoffs have just not been great. He has only managed to score one top 10 finish, and now he is in a must-win situation, along with his teammate Denny Hamlin. They're only 17 points below the cut line, I believe. Both of them are, but that is definitely something you do not want to see. Enter the meme, enter the Thanos meme, I won. But at what cost? Everything. A soul for a soul, I guess. I mean, Joe Gibbs gets a win in the end, but two of their cars are facing elimination going into Martinsville. Now, luckily for both Hamlin and Truex, Martinsville is one of their best tracks, both of those drivers. So I wouldn't say, I take back what I said about the must-win situation. I wouldn't say that they're completely in desperation mode yet, but this is, if you're a fan of either one of those drivers, this is definitely something that you did not want to see. So I feel really, really bad for some of these drivers. I mean, complete misfortune happened. So, I apologize if you hear barking in the background. Hold on one second. Quick little pause right here. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. But as I was saying, Truex and Hamlin, I wouldn't say that they're in complete desperation mode yet, but this is something that they did not want to get themselves into. But, complete chaos ensued afterwards. But during the earlier parts of the race, there was a driver who wasn't in any desperation mode at all, considering that they won the previous week. There was an incident that cost me $15 and actually gave me shaving cream to eat. For anybody who follows the Instagram, I had a bet with a very close friend of mine saying that Kyle Larson was going to win at Homestead Miami Speedway, considering that is his best track. And it looked like a Larson domination day. I believe he got stage 1. He didn't win stage 2. He lost it in the late going with Ryan Blaney, excuse me. But I was still confident in Kyle Larson to, get the job done, get the W, and, just all that. But during the first green flag pit stop for both of the leaders, Blaney was actually leading, but Kyle Larson was quickly, right behind them. And, this was going to probably be the decider on who was going to win the race. So before the green flag pit stop, obviously drivers have to slow in 3 and 4 in order to make it on pit road so they don't avoid speeding. Blaney was slowing down to, enter on pit road. You don't want to get caught for speeding. And Larson was literally quick behind him, was hot on his tail. And Larson didn't slow down enough in time. And instead, he clips the back end of Blaney, but also sends himself into the sand and water barrier. So that really messed up Larson's day. It ended his day, and it was truly a very insane moment. And this was probably the most upset I had ever been when it comes to Larson wrecking. I literally got up off my couch and I literally screamed, "You have got to be effing kidding me," because out of all the ways that a driver who has dominated the race could possibly lose a race, this has got to be one of the most silliest ways imaginable. And, it's not often that you see something like this happen, but, man, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. It was crazy. I mean, could you imagine being in Ryan Blaney's shoes and just seeing that happen in your rearview mirror, and you were just like, man, where the heck was he going? So, why am I bringing up this moment exactly? I mean, this was a pretty, this took out one of the most dominant cars, if not the most dominant car of the day. So, why am I bringing this up? Well, if you guys are a subscriber to the YouTube channel The Iceberg, he made a video talking about how Kyle Larson's greatest strength is also his greatest weakness, essentially. Basically, he mentioned how he made a comparison to Kyle Larson being the Brett Favre of NASCAR. For any NFL fans out there, Brett Favre, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, a Hall of Fame career, but he's also known for some pretty big back-breaking interceptions and some goofy moments. And I could see the comparisons wholeheartedly. Now, what I'm going to talk about is I'm not ripping on Kyle Larson. And a lot of Kyle Larson fans have saw the video of Jared Lundberg talking about that. And he's, a lot of people are like, well, he's in the championship 4. Your opinion doesn't matter. And listen, we understand as fans that he's in the championship four. We're not discrediting anything that Larson has done. We understand that Larson is one of the most talented drivers, if not the most talented driver in NASCAR as of right now when it comes to raw speed and raw talent. But what we are talking about is the fact that there has been times where Kyle Larson by himself is leading, is dominating, and there's a goofy moment that he created. I mean, look at Texas a few weeks ago, for example. He drove it in a little bit too hard underneath Bubba Wallace and essentially wrecked himself. Now, I don't mean to call Larson out, by any means. Again, I'm not discrediting him. I'm not saying he's not talented. I'm not saying that he's not any of this stuff. But there has been moments where he's been, where he should have clutched up in the moment, but didn't do it. I mean, he's the ultimate definition of checkers or wreckers this year. I mean, and I wouldn't say, when I say that statement, I wouldn't say it would be hard for me to find anybody who disagrees with that statement. But unless you're, and I hate to say this, I hate to call out many people's fan bases, but there are some Hendrick Motorsports stands out there who believe that the drivers or the team are completely excused from any excuse, or just could do no wrong because they win a lot. And I'm sorry to all the Hendrick stands out there, but that is not the case. Every top team, or every team in general, does have their brightest moments and does have their dull moments. And Kyle Larson is one of those drivers. Like I said, he's a very talented race car driver. He is a generational talent in this sport, and he's going to dominate for years to come. But we cannot ignore the fact that there has been times where Larson, is his own worst enemy sometimes. I mean, Kansas earlier in the spring as an example. I know a lot of people have said that, oh, well, he wrecked, Denny Hamlin wrecked Kyle Larson for the win, which, it was hard racing for the win. But technically, if you think about it, and this might be a controversial statement I'm about to make, that was essentially Larson's fault in a way, because he had a very, very good lead against Denny Hamlin, who was running second. I mean, he was about 2 seconds ahead of him. He cooked his own tires. He was pushing himself too hard when he didn't have to. He could just relax, keep a very consistent lead, and just walk away with the win. But he didn't need to push himself that hard. And I understand that's a past moment, and it has no relation to Miami. But let's talk about Miami for a second. This was another moment where Larson pushed himself a little bit too hard. And I saw fans making the excuse that Ryan Blaney slowed up a lot more than drivers are known for doing at Homestead Miami Speedway, which that is a difficult pit road to get onto, so you have to slow down as much as you can. And a lot of people were putting blame on Blaney for doing that. Now, if that were to be true, if Blaney was slowing up a little bit more than usual just to get on pit road, I honestly can't blame Ryan Blaney for doing that. And the reason why is because this is the playoffs, this is the round of 8, this is the most crucial round, imaginable. You cannot make any mistakes, because one mistake separates you from a trip to Phoenix to, ending your season entirely and putting yourself into a situation that you don't want to be in. So if that is the case, that Ryan Blaney was slowing up a little bit more than usual, than most drivers do, then I honestly can't blame him. You don't want to make a mistake. It's crucial moments. So it's really hard to put blame on anyone in this particular situation. I see where both sides are coming from, but I will leave you all with this. There have been moments where Kyle Larson should have clutched up and just, there was something goofy that happened. Again, I am not doing this to hate on Kyle Larson. I respect Larson a ton. He is one of the best talents, if not the best talent in our sport. But sometimes the best of any sport does have some head-scratching moments. And I am not wrong when I say that. Anybody can agree with me on that. But with that all being said, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for the weekend recap and talking about if Christopher Bell is clutch or not. Now we must talk about the NASCAR ratings this week and how they compared against F1. So it's kind of rare for NASCAR to compete against F1 in ratings every single year because majority of the time, Formula One races take place during the morning when NASCAR races on Sunday take place in the afternoon. But this was one of those rare occasions where both were competing at the exact same time. The NASCAR race was at Homestead Miami Speedway, while the F1 American Grand Prix, or the United States Grand Prix, or whatever you want to call it, was taking place in Austin, Texas. So I will pull up the ratings here for a second. I don't have them on my note sheet, but I will bring them up here in a second. Let's see here. Can I please get the tweet from Adam Stern? Sorry if I'm pausing a little bit there, but can I please get the tweet? Okay, no, I guess Adam Stern didn't tweet anything like that, but I do want to talk about the ratings for this week, as I mentioned earlier, but I don't know. Yes, here's the article that I'm talking about. This is from the dailydownforce.com, by the way. Huge shout out to them. And according to the numbers by Austin Konensky, correct me if I'm wrong, a reporter, he says that the NASCAR Cup Series race at Homestead Miami Speedway earned 2.250 million 2,250,000 I can't read numbers. 2.250 million average viewers on NBC last weekend. The event was down 2.6% compared to last year's 100 million average viewers on NBC. So as I'm reading the article, they mentioned that the key demographic was less of a win for NASCAR, as the 18 to 49 demographic was 339,000 viewers, and the 18 to 34 demographic was 142,000 views. Formula One, on the other hand, when it came to the 18 to 49 demographic, was 298,000 viewers for F1 in the 18 to 49 demographic, and the 18 to 34 demographic for Formula One was 115,000. So we got to ask ourselves, why is this a big deal? While NASCAR did beat F1 in ratings by a landslide, so to speak, not necessarily a landslide, but more of a I guess it was a win. Let me just say that it was a win. I don't know the word to choose for it, but it was a win for NASCAR. But with dang, I forgot what I was gonna say. Why is this a big deal? Well, it's a big deal simply because obviously more tuned into NASCAR than F1, which F1, as of right now, I wouldn't say it's the most popular motorsport in America. I think that distinction still belongs to NASCAR, but F1, ever since Drive to Survive came out, that captured the Netflix audience, and just they took it and ran with it, and I just now I remember what I was gonna say. In the article of the dailydownforce.com, it reads, with Formula One inching in on NASCAR territory in recent years, this was a major test for NASCAR. Formula One was racing in the United States at Circuit of the Americas on network TV. During the NASCAR race at Homestead, Miami, it is the second time that the two went head-to-head in the United States this season. with F1 in Miami and NASCAR in Kansas back in May. That one says NASCAR won in the overall viewership, but Formula One took the key demographic. This time, NASCAR won in both demographics, which is a big win for NASCAR. NASCAR is also making strides in trying to appeal to the younger audience, including a new video game coming out, and basically just goes on saying that, NASCAR is having a new video game coming out in 2025 and the new Netflix docuseries and blah, 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 blah. So this is obviously a big win because, obviously I don't like it that motorsports compete with each other simply because, I appreciate all motorsports, even though I only talk about one specific one, but I have a ton of appreciation for any form of motorsports out there, whether it's on wheels, boats, whatever the case may be, But I do believe that, the fact that we're beating, a very substantial crowd, in our own, backyard, even though we shouldn't have to because I would consider NASCAR to be the number one sport, is very, very interesting to me. Now, I'm not going to sit back and talk about, the logistics of this because, I don't know all the ins and outs, so to speak, because you hear me during this podcast and you're just like, this guy's, he's not credible with this. But I will just say that this is a big win. We always bring up the 18 to 49, being the very, very big key demographic. And the fact that NASCAR got both wins in both overall viewership and overall demographic viewership, then that's just a win in general. So we went from having an L1 week in ratings because Las Vegas's race was 16.2% down in viewership compared to last year's race at the same time, to a W, so to speak. Although the race was down, a certain percentage compared to last year, 2.6%. It's a win. You take what you can get. Now moving on with our next topic of the show, ladies and gentlemen. This week, actually yesterday, was the 1-year anniversary of the infamous Hail Melon move made by Ross Chastain. So, for any new fans in the world of NASCAR who aren't familiar with the Hail Melon move or have already seen it but don't know the full context towards the move, then I am going to explain. So, the Hail Melon move with Ross Chastain was the final race of the round of 8 last year, and Ross Chastain had to pass 2 cars, including playoff driver Denny Hamlin, in order to get himself into the championship 4. Now, Hamlin was in turns 3 and 4 on the final lap, while Ross Chastain was on the backstretch, and he needed to find some way to get himself into the championship 4. So, he eventually would go down the back straightaway, but never lifted at all. He then rode the walls in turns 3 and 4, passed so many cars on the outside, full throttle, and he edged out Denny Hamlin and to get himself into the championship 4. And it was basically a Hail Mary move, throwing up his arms, basically saying, okay, well, let's do this and just hope for the best. Obviously, he didn't throw up his arms, but, he basically just hammered down and just never lifted. And that was one of the greatest and most infamous moments in NASCAR history. And also, it's what put NASCAR on mainstream media for about a few short days. If you watch Slapshoe's video about the Hail Melon and, the effects afterwards, there really wasn't a whole lot. But what makes the Hail Melon so special is that we had never seen a wall ride like that before in our lives. There's been multiple before, but they never really resulted in anything positive. I mean, you could think of like Carl Edwards versus Jimmy Johnson back in 2008, where Edwards pulled off a dive bomb video game move and tried to clear Jimmy Johnson the win at Kansas, but ended up putting himself in the wall, and that gave Johnson the win. But this was the video game move that was very, very successful for the first time ever. And since then, it will not be replicated ever again, because just a couple months later, NASCAR announced that they would ban wall riding. So where was I at when this all happened? Obviously, I was watching the race at home. I was watching the race between, that and the NFL, that week, because I'm a big football fan myself. And I was watching the end of the race, and I was more excited for Christopher Bell getting into the championship four, because, like I said earlier, he had to pull up a clutch victory in order to get himself in. He did just that. But I was completely unaware at the time what transpired, because I was so focused on Bell, getting the job done, getting the win, to lock himself into the championship four, that I was too worried about that to notice that Ross Chastain made it into the championship four, and I was just like, wait, what? How'd that happen? And then because I was watching the race on my phone, I looked at my phone, and NBC showed the replay of him just wall riding turns 3 and 4, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, he did that. Like, that actually happened. And even looking at the replay to this day, it amazes me that was even that was even at the normal speed. It looked sped up. Like, that wreck, well, not wreck, I should say, but that move didn't even look like it was real. It looked sped up. Like, it just, like, I'm still, to this day, I'm still baffled that move was pulled off at the end. And, like a lot of fans, the group chat that I'm currently still in, they reacted to this move, and they were just like, oh my goodness, that actually just happened. And Ross just pulled off the craziest move in, like, the past, God knows how long. That's the playoffs for you. I mean, it was just crazy. Now, after a few months, I will say that me seeing the Hail Melon move, it did get old. And quite frankly, to this day, I'm kind of tired of seeing it. Like, it's been played over and over and over again. Like, yes, we know it's a very, very iconic move, but we don't need to see it every single time. Like, we don't need it to be shoved down our throats. And even with Martinsville this weekend, NASCAR did, show that moment, just to get fans hyped for this weekend's Martinsville race. But I will say that is a bit contradicting, because I don't understand why NASCAR is, promoting and advertising the move that, went very, very viral, but at the same time you banned it. So if you are showing this to any new fan that is getting into the sport, you don't want to trick them into thinking two things. One, that this move is going to happen on a weekly basis and it's going to happen again. And two, that, every driver does this every single week, for wins and stuff like that. But no, that's not the case. Actually, that was just one reason entirely. I don't know why I said two, but, my point still stands, Again, a very, very iconic moment. That's something that we're never going to see ever again. But, I don't understand why NASCAR is, promoting this move when then again you banned it, or advertising it. Like, the advertisement part, it's for hype value, this and that. But at the same time, you don't want to get your fans hyped for something that's not going to actually happen, because, it's something that you outlawed. So, I mean, it's kind of the irony, I should say. It's very, very ironic. But yeah, so that was just something I wanted to talk about. It wasn't a very, very major topic, but it's now a very important moment in NASCAR history, and it's something that I'm glad that I got to see. Do I want to see it again? No. I mean, we're not going to, but even if that move wasn't banned, I still wouldn't want to see it, because if drivers did that on a constant basis in desperation mode at tracks that it would work at, I wouldn't want to see it, because it kind of lessens the value of what the original was, because, it's not as special anymore. That's just facts. You know what I mean? It ruins the value of it. But with that being said, we have some silly season news that broke yesterday afternoon. Now, there was rumors early in the morning of this move happening. Now, it did come from the infamous Twitter user. I'm not going to say that Twitter user's name because, again, I'm trying to keep a PG show going here. Moving forward with this show, I'm trying to limit it as less, explicit, content, this, and that. But, the Twitter user that's infamous for NASCAR rumors and silly season rumors as of, recently struck once again as it was announced that as Richard Childress Racing, I should say, announced that Jesse Love, the 2023 ARCA Menard Series champion himself, will drive the number 2 car in the NASCAR Xfinity Series for that team starting in 2024. So, this is very, very big news. This is very interesting to me because let's look at Jesse Love for a second. So, if you don't know who Jesse Love is, I just mentioned that he is the 2020 ARCA champ who drove the 20 car for Venturini Motorsports. He ended up winning 10 of the 20 ARCA races this year. Again, I mentioned before that in the past that ARCA is not the ARCA is not what it used to be. It's not what it used to be, but regardless, it's still impressive. If you can win, you can win. He also made some trucks. He also made 3 Truck Series starts this year for Tricon Garage, and actually one of those truck starts, which he was going to enter in anyways, was actually in the 11 truck at Gateway when Corey Heim was dealing with an illness that week. Jesse Love was told to step in, and the one truck would be filled with Tony Breidinger, and he actually finished 9th in his first ever Truck Series start. And he also made 2 more Truck Series starts that year. This year, I should say, excuse me. We're not past 2023 yet. So we obviously thought after his ARCA Menard Series championship, we obviously thought that the most likely move that he was going to do was go up to the Truck Series and run full-time for Tricon. But it looks like that he'll be skipping that series and he'll be jumping up full-time to Richard Childress Racing in the Xfinity Series, which he has not even made a single Xfinity Series start. But this is a very interesting move. Like I said, for Richard Childress Racing standpoint, I think this is a solid move. First of all, you're getting Austin Hill back, which is, a very big W because Austin Hill, has been really, really solid for, Richard Childress Racing in the Xfinity Series. And, he's returning to the 21 car for a multi-year deal. And he could have taken a Cup experience, a Cup ride with Colleague Racing this year for the 31, but he just decided, no, I think RCR is the best place for me, and he's going to stick around. I mean, if you're comfortable with a particular spot that helps you win races and contend for titles, then why not leave? So Hill's going to be staying there, and now you bring in a young, talented Jesse Love. To show how young Jesse Love is, I was born in 2005 and in October, and Jesse Love was born in the same year in January. So Jesse Love is 9 months older than me. So that's pretty young. We're both 18 years old. So but congrats to Jesse Love for getting this opportunity to drive in the Xfinity Series. I do expect him to make the playoffs and probably win a race or two next year. I don't want to put too much pressure on him considering that he doesn't have any Xfinity Series experience, but if you were put in one of those top cars in the Xfinity Series, whether it's a Junior Motorsports, a Joe Gibbs Racing car, who's another top Xfinity Series team, an RCR seat or a Stewart-Haas Racing seat, you are expected to win in one of those seats. Bottom line, that's just the bottom line, and Jesse Love, he's going to have those, expectations. But and another good thing for Jesse Love is that he does not have to worry about any single funding because Whelen, who's the main sponsor of the 2 car for right now for Sheldon Creed, it will be staying as a primary sponsor. So Jesse Love doesn't have to worry about any funding being brought with him. So yeah, the car is already funded for him. Just put a driver in that seat, and you're good to go for the whole entire season. So, this is a W for RCR, but this is another L for Toyota because they have just lost two of their top Toyota prospects this year. That being Sammy Smith, who's going to go over the Junior Motorsports for Xfinity next year, and Jesse Love, to lost their ARCA champ to Chevy and RCR. So, I think Toyota will be fine, honestly. They still have a lot of talented Toyota prospects out there. They still have Corey Heim, William Sawalich. They have young dirt driver Jade Evadisian, Sean Hingarani. They have a lot of Toyota prospects out there. So I wouldn't say it's all doom and gloom for Toyota. I mean, would they have liked to keep Justin Love because of how talented he is? Yes, definitely. But, and hell, they're even getting Chandler Smith and Sheldon Creed potentially. So, they still have a pretty stacked lineup. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom for Toyota. But once again, congratulations to Jesse Love on this big announcement. Wish him luck for 2024. Now we get into one of the main topics that I wanted to talk about, and that is this weekend is the Round of 8 elimination race. And this is to decide who will race for a championship at Phoenix this year. One last shot to get into the championship 4, ladies and gentlemen, as two drivers have already locked up their spot for the championship 4, that being Kyle Larson at Las Vegas and Christopher Bell at Miami. Now we'll either get a third playoff driver in a row winning this race and another driver in the playoffs who makes it in on points. So as of right now, the current playoff standings for the NASCAR Cup Series goes as this. Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson locked in with wins. William Byron at plus 30. I completely 100% expect William Byron to make it into the championship 4. And then you have Ryan Blaney at plus 10. Blaney had a very solid week at Las Vegas. Nearly got penalized, nearly put him in a very bad spot. But as of where it stands right now, I know Martinsville could change a lot of things, but as of right now, he's in the championship 4. So you have Ryan Blaney at plus 10. He's currently above the cut line. So that's where the championship 4 stands as of right now. Then below the cut line at the 5th spot, you have Tyler Reddick at minus 10. Reddick, like Blaney, has had a solid round of 8. Reddick finished 8th at Las Vegas. Not bad, but didn't have the greatest day. Tyler Reddick goes to one of his best racetracks. I mentioned before the race last week that 2 out of Reddick's 3 Homestead appearances have resulted in top 5s, and now it's 3 out of Reddick's 4 appearances at Homestead have resulted in top 5s as he finished 3rd. So Reddick is definitely not in a must-win situation. And realistically, all that Tyler Reddick really needs to do this weekend, which I don't know where he finished at Martinsville in the spring. I will check on that because I don't believe it's one of his best tracks, so to speak. But in the spring, oh damn, where did he finish? I'm looking on Google as of right now at where he finished in the April of this year. He ended up finishing 22nd. So it's not one of his best racetracks, obviously. But I don't really... So Reddick would like to win and just not have to worry about anything else. But I think what Reddick has to do is just to score enough points, like enough stage points, maybe get a stage win if you qualify really well, and just stay consistent throughout the whole entire day and just hope that the 12 team makes some mistakes. Because if Ryan Blaney has a bad day and Tyler Reddick does have a good day, then that could be the separation between, who's going to make it and who's not. Now, below Tyler Reddick in both 6th and 7th are teammates Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin, and they are both minus 17 below the cut line. I did not expect this at all before the playoffs. I mean, Denny Hamlin, he's been running consistent in the playoffs. I mean, he won at Bristol to advance himself into the round of 12. But Martin Truex Jr., he has just had a horrible playoff run. And a lot of people question his, dedication, after, this past weekend's race, because he said some things on the radio after the motor blew up saying, I ain't doing all this, crap anymore. I'm freaking done, this, and that. And we, how long does Martin Truex Jr. actually have? I mean, he said that he's going to be back for 2024, but, is that going to be the final year? Is he actually really done, with all this BS? So it's going to be interesting to see, what he does at Martinsville along with Denny Hamlin. And like I mentioned earlier, that Martinsville is one of their best tracks. They've had multiple wins there. I would say Hamlin is a bit better, but Truex has won some races there in the previous few years. But yeah, this is a situation that they didn't want to be in. And at last, at 8th, all the way down, 43 points below the cut line, is a 17 of Chris Buescher. His playoff run has just been a bag of mixed tricks. I mean, there's been times where we've seen him run fairly well, and just other times where he's just not doing so hot. So, unfortunately for all the Chris Buescher stands out there, or believers, I hate to say it, but you guys are going to have a coming to Jesus moment where, that's nothing to be ashamed of either. I mean, Chris Buescher, before this season, I didn't even expect him to, make the playoffs. But he went out and did a whole lot more than anybody can anticipate. He won 3 races and made the playoffs. That's just wild to think about. And made the round of 8. Regardless of what happens to Chris Buescher, this has been a very good season for him. But in order to make the championship 4, he would have to win at Martinsville, and I honestly just don't see that, unfortunately. But regardless of what happens for Chris Buescher, very, very solid run for the playoffs. But who do I have making the championship 4? I'm not even going to make a prediction as of right now because a lot can happen, a lot can change. The only 2 drivers that are safe right now are Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson. I would throw William Byron in there. He definitely has enough points, but then again, no one's safe. Blaney, for example, he's only plus 10. That could change. Reddick could move up to 4th, and he could fall back to 5th. A lot could happen this weekend. This is, this weekend for some of the playoff drivers below the cut line and some of them above, it's do or die time. This is what we all came to see, and this is what's going to decide it all. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are now down to the final minutes of the show, and we are going to get into the final topic, and that is, well, it's not really a topic. I keep, forgetting that. But the final segment of the show, ladies and gentlemen, that is race picks, ladies and gentlemen. This weekend, the NASCAR Xfinity Series and Cup Series make their second annual trip to the Martinsville Speedway in the state of Virginia. This Saturday is the Xfinity Series race. This also decides their championship 4. Who is going to win the Xfinity Series race? I didn't really have to take long with this pick. I honestly really haven't studied the Xfinity Series race a whole lot. Compared to the Cup race, because I've been more worried about the Cup Series more than anything. But for my pick this weekend in the Xfinity Series is John Hunter Nemechek. It's a pretty simple pick. He won there earlier in the spring, which actually at the time was his second win of 2023. So for my pick to win the Xfinity Series race, keeping it short, simple, and sweet, I'm going to go with the 20 of John Hunter Nemechek. It would be his 8th win, and he would lock himself into the championship 4, which he's probably going to most likely do anyways. But John Hunter Nemechek, my pick to win at Martinsville. Now we get into Sunday's event, which is the Martinsville Round of 8 race, ladies and gentlemen, and it is the decider. This decides who will race for a championship at Phoenix next week. I was going to pick a Hendrick Motorsports driver to win this weekend. But, I'm going to go with a long shot pick. And, I don't know. This pick might backfire on me. Now, I'm not as confident as I was with Larson last week, so I'm not going to say that, and there's no bet on the line for this one. But I will say that the pick I'm about to make is a very, very interesting one. And even though I mentioned that Martinsville is not one of his best tracks, I will say that, if things go his way, then he's going to walk away a winner. This is probably the biggest long shot pick I've made all year long. My pick to win this Sunday at Martinsville, ladies and gentlemen, is Tyler Reddick. My gut is just telling me that he is just going to walk away with the win. This is one of the few times where I'm going to try to trust my gut feeling. And, I don't like picking the same guys every week. Larson, Byron, this, and that. So yeah, I'm going to go with the long shot pick, and I'm going to say that this might be a, I'm not going to say it's going to be a wacky race per se, but, there might be some goofy moments that happen with guys like Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin, where we see a guy, like Tyler Reddick, take advantage of the moment and get himself into, the next round of the playoffs or the championship four. So I'm going to go with the long shot pick and say that Tyler Reddick is going to make the championship four. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. There was an interruption there, but yes, as I said, Tyler Reddick is my pick to win at Martinsville this weekend. My picks go as John Hunter Nemechek and Tyler Reddick. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for yet another episode of the Checkers and Wreckers podcast. Man, we are already getting down to the end of season 1. That is just insane to me. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I have been your host, Carter Leonard. This has been one big week of a lot of crap that's happened, so to speak. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode or listening into this week's episode. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel. Follow our social media handles. And I will see you guys next week as we preview the season finale and who will be the 2023 champions of NASCAR this season. As your host, as always, God, I can't even get my intro right. As always, I am your host, Carter Leonard, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.